Does your child or student have an IEP or need one? Then you've come to the right place. If they have special education or related services, then you're going to be sitting in a ton of IEP meetings where your team is talking about IEP services. That's why in this video, I'm going to walk you through who is going to work with your child on the services page, what that looks like, where to find this on the IEP, and how to advocate like a pro so you can avoid the 4 biggest mistakes in an IEP meeting. Hey, what's up? I'm April Rarig, your special education advocate to make IEPs and 504 plans so much easier. If you're new here, go ahead and click on the subscribe button to get more videos like this in your inbox, and follow us on Instagram at Rise Ed Advocacy. IEPs, also known as individual education plans, are regulated under IDEA law. The problem with special education is schools don't always communicate with parents when they talk about an IEP services page, specifically what that service is going to look like and how it's going to look. That's why I'm so excited that you're watching this video so that I can give you all the information and you can advocate like a pro. Let me ask you something now. If you think about the IEP cycle, if your child has had an IEP meeting before, have you ever noticed that they do things in a certain way for every meeting? What am I talking about? I'm talking about that there is a cycle to special education in terms of when you have an initial IEP, an annual IEP, a triennial IEP. That's why I want you to check out my free guide, the Special Education Cycle, so you can navigate what is going to happen and when for your child, and you know exactly where you need to be and where you need to go. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So let me ask you something. Specifically, what happens inside your IEP meeting? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the order of when things happen. Here's something you may not know. Pro tip. IDEA law clarifies there's going to be a sequence of when things happen. Let me spell it out for you. Step 1 of the IEP has to talk about the assessment, or what's known as the present levels of achievement or functional performance. Step 2 has to talk about the IEP goals. Then step 3 has to talk about the services, which is what we're talking about right now. And then finally, step 4 has to do with the placement in terms of the offer of free, appropriate public education for your child. So in order to understand what happens and when, specifically during the sequence of the entire IEP, make sure to check out my video that lays out those 4 specific parts and goes into more detail so you know exactly how to advocate like a pro. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So before we dive into the IEP services page for your child, I first want to back it up a minute, and we need to talk about IEP content. What am I talking about? I'm talking about that there are 8 parts inside your child's IEP. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to pause this video and go get your child's IEP and bring it back so we can walk it through together. I'll go ahead and wait. Okay, did you get the IEP? All right, so take a look inside the IEP and you're going to see on each page or each section, there is a very specific order of when things happen. Remember, we talked about those 4 parts of an IEP, but there are those 8 content areas. So you need to understand how to read your child's IEP before we can even talk about the services. Make sure to check out my video, how to read an IEP, that lays out those 8 specific parts so you can walk through all the different sections or content of the IEP and be able to understand what they mean and why. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So perhaps you're watching this video and you're thinking, you know what, April, I've got an IEP meeting coming up. I have a lot of questions about the IEP services. Maybe I want a teacher coming. I'd love to have drafts. I hate having surprises. What do I need to do and how do I prepare? Make sure to check out my IEP meetings request template that has a fillable digital template that lays it out so that you can ask your team the questions that you've been burning to. You can write what's called a parent letter of attachment. You can get specific teachers to come to the meeting, get drafts before. Oh my goodness, it is amazing, and I use it with all of my clients. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So now you know the order of an IEP and what it looks like. Let's dive into the IEP services. Specifically, what are IEP services supposed to do? What is the function? The function of an IEP service is supposed to support the IEP goals proposed by the team. What am I saying? I'm saying that based on your child's present levels of achievement and functional performance, they're supposed to develop the goals, saying what your child is supposed to do and how, and then those services are supposed to be connected to the goals. So when you look at your child's IEP, each goal is supposed to be connected to a service. So if your child has a goal in reading, that it's going to be connected to this provider. If your child has a goal in speech, it's supposed to be connected to this provider. They need to make sense.
Yes.
So maybe you're watching this video and you're like, okay, I think I get it, April, but I still have that IEP meeting coming up. How do I do an IEP meeting and what do I need to do to prepare? Make sure to check out our video, how to do an IEP meeting, that gives you a ton of secrets so that you can prepare for the actual meeting and not feel so frustrated and angry after every single one. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So now it's time to dive more into the IEP services. Specifically, where are the IEP services inside your child's IEP? So we've already reviewed those 4 basic parts. You have the IEP in front of you. Awesome. Now I want you to start at the beginning of the IEP and you're going to see an information section. Then you're going to flip to those present levels part I was talking about. There's those IEP goals. After the goals, there's something called supplementary services, or what's called SAS. Right after SAS is where you're going to find the IEP services page. So take a look through that page for a moment and look at all the information. There's so much information in there. It's just so frustrating. Don't stress. I've got you covered. You ever notice that when you're sitting inside your child's IEP meeting, your team is just spelling it out with these crazy IEP acronyms? So they're saying things like least restrictive environment, also known as LRE, FAPE, IEP, procedural safeguards. Oh my goodness, the terms are just so overwhelming. Make sure to grab my guide, 6 Pillars of IDA Law. That's a free guide that spells out all of those definitions so you don't feel like your team's talking about a foreign language, and it makes sense exactly what your team is saying and you are on the same page.
Yes.
Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. We've talked about what is an IEP, what are IEP services, and where to find them inside your child's IEP. Now it's time to dig into those 4 biggest mistakes that I see as a special education advocate all the time. Take a look at your IEP services page. Mistake number 1. Who will provide the IEP service? So inside your child's IEP, the type of service provider should be clarified for each service. What am I talking about? If your child has speech and language service, then a speech and language provider or a general education teacher or special education teacher needs to be written into the service page. Same with if they have specialized academic instruction or they have specific related services, the type of the provider, not the name, needs to be written on that services section. And mistake number 2 has to do with specifying when services happen. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the duration of the services should be clearly spelled out inside your child's IEP. Pro tip. If your child has specially designed instruction, the start date and the end date needs to be written. Same with if they have speech and language services, the start date and the end date has to be written. Here's something your school is not going to tell you. Pro tip, if you end a service, the end date needs to be written. Same with if they attend ESY, also known as summer school, the start date and the end date needs to be written on the IEP services. Are you seeing that for your child? This brings me to mistake number 3, documenting the frequency and intensity of service. What am I talking about? I'm talking about on your child's IEP services page, it needs to be clearly laid out. They're going to have specially designed instruction 2 times a month for 40 minutes, or they're going to have occupational therapy once a month for 30 minutes. It needs to be clear and it needs to be specific. What am I not talking about? Pro tip, you cannot list a range of services or say, oh, okay, well, the child is going to receive services as needed, or they're going to be getting services that are less frequent, like 4 times annually, 2 times yearly. What is the problem when you don't clarify the frequency and intensity? The problem is you're unable to monitor progress and you don't know if your child is going to receive educational benefit. What am I saying? That for an annual IEP or anytime your team meets, they need to update the progress, meaning they need to show you, did your child meet the goal? Did they not? And they need to give you what's called an IEP progress report. Well, if there's no clear specificity in terms of the intensity and the frequency of the service, how do you know if they're going to receive progress? And pro tip, if your team recommends once a year 4 times, the provider could see your child 4 times in December, once in January. Like, oh my goodness, super frustrating. So the gold standard of IEPs is to have services either daily, weekly, or monthly. Anything less is going to be very difficult to monitor progress. Speaking of monitoring progress, I have a free guide called the IEP Progress Report that is a worksheet and basically lays out the 4 things that you need to look for when monitoring your child's progress to see, are they meeting the goal? Are they not? What do I need to do? And how can I read those dang IEP progress reports?
Yes.
Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. And mistake 4 has to do with where services take place. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the location of the IEP service needs to be clear and needs to be specific. So what do you want to look for? You want to look for services that say either in general education, pull out, push in, collaboration, in a special education class. It needs to clearly lay out the location, because the problem is, let's say your child has speech services, but it doesn't say where the services are going to be provided. Then you don't know if the services are individual, if they're group, or how they're being delivered. So the location and the pedagogy in terms of whether it's individual or group needs to be clearly laid out on your child's IEP services page. Do you see that? A lot of times my families miss this too. So in order to help you feel better at the table, I've got something called the Do-It-Yourself IEP Meetings Workshop. What's inside my one-day workshop? Inside the one-day workshop, it clearly lays out all the different parts of the IEP. I've got do-it-yourself videos. I've got more information like this, and I go way deep into the IEP so that you can know, okay, my child has an IEP next week. I'm going to go ahead and take this workshop and I'm going to refresh my memory so I know what services to look for, how to read a goal, how to read a progress report. I've made the Do-It-Yourself workshop for you. Make sure to grab the link in the description box below. So now you know about IEP services for your child, specifically who is going to provide the service, where to find this in the services page, and what this looks like. Let me ask you something. What's the one thing that you want to do differently now that you have all this information before your child's IEP? Got a question? Put it in the description box below. Want me to do another video? Yep, I can do it there too. Make sure to grab all the information about our workshops, fillable guides, and free information. Like and subscribe to get more videos like this in your inbox every week, and follow us on Instagram at Rise Ed Advocacy. I'm April Rarig, your special education advocate. I can't wait to see you for our next video.